there was this idea, sort of the beginning of the internet age, that media was going to become, technology and media was going to become very hands-on and pervasive, and that was going to make people much more media savvy because there was so much of it, and they'd be so involved in their lives and stuff. But actually, turns out that when you introduce these kinds of technologies to your civilization, rather than becoming more media savvy, they become less media savvy. They stop noticing media at all and kind of exist in this uh, sort of collective media landscape all the time. It's kind of like the fish in the bowl who doesn't know what water is because they're immersed in it constantly. And I think that's kind of the world we live in now with media and internet technology and cell phones. It's just constant. We're always in this collective kind of media space. And weirdly, I think a kind of McLuhan-esque kind of observation about internet technology is that I think the internet makes made up things seem real and makes reality seem made up. So people believe what is on their screens to be more real than their actual experience outside of their front door. They treat that as less real than the stuff on their screens, which is kind of odd. So I think one of the things that's frustrating about this whole COVID-19 thing for a lot of people is that the world seems to be divided between people who absorb the kind of messaging that's always around us and relate to that as real, and people who are like a step and a half outside of that, who are kind of are saying no, there's real and then there's what is being projected at us. And I think so it's a frustrating thing because if you are among the people who go and look for perspectives other than the ones that are delivered to us, for which we have to make absolutely no effort to receive and consume. Be like someone showing up on your doorstep every day delivering you pizza kind of all day long. You'd be like, oh, this is what you eat, I guess, pizza. And that's it. It's the same thing with the media and information, is that we're kind of delivered a certain version of the world. And then there's all of these other versions out there that were not being presented. And for some reason, the ones that are presented for us in certain formats, certain people take those literally. They take those as the same thing as truth. They it's not so much that they think about it as being truth. They just absorb it because it's everywhere. Every screen they look at is broadcasting the same message and the same interpretation about everything, and especially about COVID stuff. And the frustrating thing for people who are kind of curious, who are kind of, I guess, spontaneously skeptical, who are aware of media as a thing as opposed to simply consuming it. I think the frustrating thing is that we look at other information that's available that's contrary to this thing that's always being projected at us, and we notice that it's there, it exists, and it's credible. And sometimes it seems a lot more credible. The people that you're coming across when you look for information, the experts that you can access that way seem a lot more expert than the people you see on TV every day. The same handful of people who are presented to you as these are the experts, and they represent all the experts in the world because they all think whatever is coming out of the mouth of this television expert. So when you are kind of that step and a half outside of the the kind of mainstream, I guess, you know that there's more to the story than what is being presented. So your obvious, assumption is that that's deliberate. Why aren't they including all of this stuff? This stuff is really important and interesting and coming from amazing sources, but you're not showing this on your CBC broadcast or your ABC broadcast or CNN or CTV or in the Age or the Australian or the Globe and Mail or the Washington Post. You're not showing any of this. But I know it's there, and I know that it's really good and credible. And other people who are very good and credible are aware of it as well. So when you notice that you're not being shown everything by that mainstream delivery method of information, it puts everything in a different context for you, and you don't look at mainstream media the same way anymore. In fact, you start noticing how limited the perspective is being presented to people. And it's everywhere. It's the same perspective on every issue everywhere. In the mainstream media in Canada, in the mainstream media in the US, in the mainstream media in Australia. It's the same, sometimes the exact same articles in the newspapers and on their Facebook feeds and things. Same headlines in Australia as in Winnipeg for some reason, So it puts all of this stuff into a kind of different perspective. And it's very hard to convince people who are in that mainstream to see your point of view, because when you're in something, you're judging it with the language and the concepts of the thing you're in, right? If you're in a religion or a cult, you justify believing in that cult with the dogma of the cult. The Bible's true because it says so in page 6 and 4008. This cult is true because Jim Jones is the Messiah, and of course we would listen to the Messiah. What's wrong with you? He's the Messiah? So it's a little bit like that for people who are not completely absorbed into that mainstream kind of collective thinking. And even if you try to broach this stuff with people who are in that, they get really annoyed with you. They really hate you. I think for two reasons. I think one, they assume that you're like, I'm smarter than you, or I'm a better person, which may or may not be true, but it's not the point. But they also, I think people are so not used to having their opinions questioned or challenged anymore. They really never experience it. Everybody they know thinks exactly the same way as they do on every main subject. And so nobody is questioning anything ever. And it's the same thing they're seeing on their nightly news or their screens on their phones or on their laptops, on the media they choose. So it's all the same thing. Nobody ever forces them to justify anything that they say that they know. And so when they're confronted with someone who it questions them, their first reaction is to kind of say a bunch of standard lines that you've heard a million times from other people who are like that. And then when you kind of don't fall for it, I think they always expect you to just go, oh, I didn't know that. I have never heard that slogan that you're repeating that's constantly broadcast at us every time I turn on a screen. I didn't manage to catch that somehow. Right? So they do that, and then they just get mad at you because they don't. One, I think they don't understand what to do when someone doesn't tell them they're right, and two, because I think they're very frustrated when they're confronted with people who know what they're talking about. Because the whole premise for that kind of mainstream, and it is like, I'm basically talking about the ideological left, the progressive thing, and all of that stuff. Uh, their basic assumption has always been that they're infallibly correct, that everybody knows this, that this thing that I'm representing is my own point of view, which is the collective point of view of everybody I know and everything that on screens. Uh, that's just the truth, and the only justification for not believing what I believe is that you're stupid and evil. And then they encounter people who are not stupid or evil, particularly, who don't agree with them and who are at least as informed as they are on these subjects. And I think it kind of destroys their persona. Their persona becomes very threatened because part of their identity is that we're the enlightened people. We're the really clever, smart, morally excellent people. And when they find out that when they're forced to confront the fact that they're not really good at justifying their opinions, and somebody else is, and that somebody else disagrees with them, that's a huge threat because they're supposed to be the, top of the heap. They're supposed to be the enlightened class. And they're not. This is the thing. Of course they're not. The group, the collective, are never the enlightened class. They're always the followers. They're always the easily manipulated, the easily led, the easily impressed. And to me, I think it always comes from privileging wanting to think highly about yourself above wanting to know what's true. And it's a real mistake because if your priority is wanting to think highly of yourself, wanting to think you're a really good person, that's all about yourself. That's all inward looking. And you tell yourself that you're really engaged with the world out there, but you're not. It's all about this makes me a good person. Oh my God, you don't agree with me? You're not a good person compared to me, right? It's all about themselves. And when it's all about yourself, you're not really understanding the world out there. You're only understanding your own reaction to it. And this is, I think, is the problem, is that they conflate their reactions to things with the way things actually are out there. So they have a reaction that's interior, that's inside them, and they conflate that with something true out there on the other side of their face. And it never occurs to them to question that. It's just because I really, really, really like believing this, or I really, really think this is right, or I really, really think that all the good people believe this, it doesn't necessarily mean that any of that's real or true.